Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So good to see you all. Today we're doing something special. We are doing a boss run comparing C6 R5 Ayaka versus a C0 R0 Arlecchino. I just wanted to stress that again because people don't understand Powercreep, and I guess there's a giant uproar that's being made in my previous video about it. So admittedly, the first example is not a great one because it's two different types of the Regis Vine. You're talking about Pyro and Cryo. One starts in Leeway, one starts in Mondstadt. And so I think there is a health difference, so that's not a really good example. But I'm always going to be using my Kazuha and Mona as the two supports, which I will show the build for both of them. And as you can see, with a C0 R0 Arlecchino, she is dishing out some major damage against these bosses. She is no joke, and I tried to get the exact same type of Primo Vishap in this example because they have the same resistance and different resistances to different elements, and I didn't want that to be the case. I wanted the Varial to be the same. We're moving over now to the Ruined Serpent. I had to be really quick with this one because he goes on the ground and I wanted to kill him before that, so I did end up taking my Mona and not using her burst, just switching to her for the Thrilling Tales plus 48% attack. I did that for both of them. You can see eat kill the Ruined Serpent before it goes on the ground in both examples pretty handily and pretty convincingly. It's pretty insane. Like, I can't even tell you guys how OP this Arlecchino is at C0 R0. Like, it just still blows my mind even to this day. I can't believe how far Powercreep has come. Now, there are some stipulations for my Ayaka because she is a burst specialist, and that is a variable that determines, like, for example, this boss here moves around a lot. My burst would not potentially do as much damage to show all 20 hits consecutively to be calculated. So I did not use my burst in most scenarios, and I am using food buffs to make sure that our characters are at 100% crit rate or as close as I can get it. Like, for instance, I think my Ayaka is somewhere in like the 85-90 range, and my Arlecchino is going to be at 98 if I'm not mistaken once I apply all the buffs and the food buffs. She's pretty strong. It's not a joke. So, I mean, you can pretty much see, if you're these side-by-side comparisons, Arlecchino is keeping up with my Ayaka. It's insane. Like, C6 R5, for an average whale who would be spending money with 0 Primo Gem saved, you're talking about potentially $2,000 spend. And I don't really care when they, like, some people were trying to use the argument using $2,000, but doing it 3 years ago should not, like, compete with the current units. And I completely disagree because C6 is not an average build where somebody can reach with no problem. Even the dedicated savers, you're talking 2 or 3 banners, and how Genshin was running prior to this, you're talking about 3 years to, you know, potentially a year in between each banners. Like, Eula didn't get a rerun for over 500 days. Like, imagine that scenario where you're waiting to C6 Eula. It took 500 days between one run and another. You're talking about potentially 3 years before you're able to C6 her. You know what I mean? It's insane. Now, over here with the, what the heck is this guy called? Well, the Weenut, I forgot about his, yeah. With this Weenut, the problem with him is he goes in the ground too fast, and I don't have a burst, like, I don't have the talent level leveled up for Arlecchino, so I think it's like level 6 or level 8 still, and I don't really have a burst build set up anyways, so I had to kind of run around and wait for the opportune time to attack. Same thing here, I could use my burst of Ayaka and kill it, but that's just a scenario that doesn't fit right with me because this is a normal attack showcase from Arlecchino. So I try to keep it mostly normal attack and skill showcase for my Ayaka as well. Now, there is one exception to the rule. There is an enemy I will be facing later on that I have to use my burst because I'm not able to kill him otherwise if I don't within a quick amount of time, because of the fact that he ends up having a shield with an element applied that ends up being Cryo, whereas Arlecchino is fine to take out that Cryo shield and or any other shield because he can apply 3 different types. I wasn't able to get that element coverage with my Ayaka team. But either way, you guys can see, like, the damage that is pumping out from Arlecchino at C0 R0. Her stats are 72.5, 269.5, 1800 attack, but she also gets, which doesn't show in her stats, she also gets 48% attack whenever there's a single enemy. So right now she's benefiting from that. This is the enemy I was talking about. he's able to apply these totems on field, and if you don't destroy them within a time limit, he now gets an elemental shield based off of whatever was left on the field. So because of my Ayaka team, I don't have the elemental coverage for all 3 elements, and so if I didn't kill him before he spawned that shield, I was going to be screwed, and then he would have a cryo shield that I couldn't break, and I'd have to wait the time limit where it gradually disintegrates over time. In that scenario with Arlecchino, I did have the elemental coverage in my Mona, so I was able to break that pyro shield. So I did cheat a little bit here. I did pull out the Ayaka burst just to kind of melt down his health, because you can see he's got a resistance right now, and I wanted to make sure that I could beat him before he decided that he was going to pop on these shields. So Ayaka, yeah, burst is overpowered, but you have to have an enemy stand still like that for X amount of time, at least 5 seconds, because that's the duration of the burst, to let all 20 hits hit, and considering there's 2 on the side, all 60 hits hit to get the maximum amount of damage, which is, you know, a very unlikely scenario. Now against this guy, the Hydro Tulpa, I know it was pointless to swirl my Hydro there, but I did it just to kind of keep it consistent, because I was doing it the same for every boss, and I wanted to keep it the same. That way it was the same length, same duration, same buff time, so there was no scenario that could be played out, no variable that could be played out like, oh, well, you were faster because you didn't swirl this on this one, but you did on this one. No, I swirled it even though it made no sense for my build and for this specific scenario. I still swirled it, so that way no one could say anything about nothing. Now, on to that new boss. I don't even know this guy's name. The Statue of Marble and Brass. Very nice. Yeah, this guy's pretty strong. He's got the Geo shield, but it doesn't really matter when you've got Arlecchino and even Ayaka. You just kind of shred through that thing. I mean, it doesn't even matter. Don't even got to break the shield. Just straight up to attack and destroy. Like, yeah, you did, what, 50% mitigation of damage from my Arlecchino and from my Ayaka here, but, like, it didn't even matter. I just shredded through your health. So, get destroyed, get wrecked. You're a weak boss, and nobody really cares about you, so thanks for your time, and goodbye. Anyways, going back to the whole crux of this thing, Arlecchino is freaking overpowered. If you guys haven't gotten that already, we're about halfway through the video, and for the most part, every single scenario, she's either keeping up or she's like right behind my Ayaka. Like, I'm telling you, at C0, that is insane. I don't have her C2, I don't have her signature weapon. This is an R5 deathmatch. Now, admittedly, to get the R5 deathmatch, you have to buy the battle pass on 5 different scenarios. So bare minimum spending $50, right? Some people may say it's not worth it, but when you look at the alternative, you're talking about having to spend potentially 240 wish if you lose the 50-50 twice and then go to max pity on the final run to get the signature weapon at R1. Which means that you could be spending almost $1,200, $1,250, right around that mark, to get an R5 weapon, and that's not even C6. You're talking about $2,000+ I've seen $2,200 and $2,300 dropped on these content creators for these C6 R5 characters. Now, C6 R5 is amazing, but I'm proving to you right now that you're C6 R5ing a character, and if they're not at the very, very top of the meta, they're not going to last. Like, if you go and you decide to C6 R5 anyone who's not Arlecchino or Nuvalette right now, I'm telling you, in a year, 2, or if you're lucky, 3, they're going to be so irrelevant, you're going to feel like you wasted your money. Now, when I pulled C6 R5 Ayaka, she was at the top of the meta in terms of damage based off of her burst, and I was really interested in what her normal attack looked like, especially when Shenhe came along. So, of course, I C6 Shenhe to make sure that I could have the best Ayaka possible, because I wanted to use her basically for the full duration of the game. And now here we are talking about the 5th region. We still got 2 more in Natlin and Snezhnaya coming. You're talking about potential for Conria, Celestia. I don't even know if that's going to be an area, but we got Celestia still on the horizon. And there's rumors about Genshin Impact version 2.0. So, like, the characters that potentially could be coming, we're potentially only halfway through the game. That's a little scary for me. I thought when I got C6 Shenhe, it was all written in stone. I'd be done. No one would be able to touch me. I'd be happy, and it was the end of it, right? Alright, so getting back to the showcase, we know that the Magu Kenki has a wall where you cannot do any damage after 25%, and he goes into an immune state where he slams into the ground. So I decided to iframe that and also leave that buffing from the Thrilling Tales from the weapon that Mona holds, plus the plus 15% crit rate, and her buff from the ultimate so that I could use it on the second phase there, and it worked out pretty nicely. So even at C0R0, like, there are some mechanical things that C6R5 gives you, where like you can use her burst and immediately have full damage immediately. But if you just play right and have rotations correct, you can still do a lot of damage that's competing with C6R5. Like, watch this, right? Boom, 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 right? It's like the same crap. Yeah, it took 3 swipes, but that's C6R5 of a C6R1 Shenhe with 4200 attack. Like, it's not average build. It's not average investment. And even this guy, he's got a wall that he can only take 75% damage, and then you have to wait until he drops his minions before you can actually get to his last 25% of his health. So at this point, I'm already shredded down 75%. I'm just building up my bursts because there's nothing else to do at this point. It's crazy how fast they shred. I'm telling you guys, like, C6 R5, this is a big reason I will never R5 again. I don't care what the character looks like. I don't care if it's Skirk. She comes along and I'm like, dang, that's my favorite design in the game right now, right? I do not care. I will never. And this is why I just use my burst again. It's 48% attack, and I get the buff and the crit rate buff. Like, it's just a really, really good example of how to properly use your rotations and save certain things for certain moments in the game. Back to what I was saying. I will never R5 again because I R5'd Ayaka's weapon, and then now they got weapons coming out of 88 point whatever percent crit damage at level 90, and you're talking about so much damage from the crit damage buffs, which are obviously going to go up because, like I said, we're only in Fontaine. We got Natlan, Shesnaya, and a couple of other regions potentially. Version 2, or not version 2, part 2 is what they're going to call it. Like, you're literally looking at scenarios where they're going to get over Powercreep just by basic stats, and now they're going to be doing more damage even though it's not their signature weapons. It's crazy. Like, signature weapons don't last anymore. Okay, moving on over to the buffs now. I was using the 5-star Delicious Adeptus Temptation, gives me plus 12% crit rate and 372 attack in a 5-minute span. I was using the Frosting Essential Oil for Ayaka and the Flaming Essential Oil for Arlecchino, just to make sure everyone was getting the highest damage output that my account can personally do. As you can see, my Ayaka is fully well invested in. You're talking about 2,000-ish attack. I think it's like 1,800, 1,850. You're talking about C6, R5, which we've said over and over. I'm sorry to talk your ear off. And 40.4 crit rate with 306.6 crit damage. 4,233 attack Shenhe, right? C6, R1. Like, there is no reason that I should be being competed with a C0R0. And for the people out there who want to talk their you-know-what on the previous video that you guys were talking all that crap, it doesn't make sense to you because you haven't spent money in the game and you haven't put your time into the game where you built these characters with love, care, and passion, right? These are my favorite characters, so I put a lot of effort into them. This is a 961 Kazuha, level 10 talent for his burst. This is a C5 Mona, who has like 267.4 energy recharge, and she also has the 4-piece Noblesse to make sure that I get that extra damage when she uses her burst on the whole team. I think it's like plus 12% attack, whatever. Thrilling Tales R5 at 48%, level 90 in case you missed that. High level investment to make sure these characters are thriving so I can get the most amount of buffs and the most amount of damage on my characters possible for these showcases. C4, like I said, the big one, whenever you use that Omen, which is her burst, plus 15% crit rate to the next character who does damage to her. And it's a level 12 talent, not even a crowned one, but that's just because it didn't affect the damage bonus, so I didn't feel like crowning her. I'm telling you guys, this is not average investment, and this is not normal. We are talking about characters who are just completely shattering the meta at 1,800 attack. Now, granted, I have really good stats on her at 72.5, 269.5, but, and obviously her weapon, which is R5 Deathmatch, gives her, when there's only one enemy, a 48% attack increase, so it's basically like a Thrilling Tales, but at the same time, that is a purchasable weapon for $50 maximum when you're talking about R5 signature weapons that could be costing you upwards of around $1,200. That's a lot of money difference for a very similar damage outcome. Obviously, her normal attack is crowned. I wasn't able to get her skill, her burst up all the way yet, but C0 not even R1, R0. Like, it's just not normal, guys. It's not normal. I don't know what else I have to say to you guys, but you guys clearly aren't getting the message, so I had to show you that she is keeping up. Sometimes, like, it's like real close. It's hard to tell who won, or she's just barely behind, and she's a C0 character. Like, it's not freaking normal. So, all of you who were talking your smack, let's see what you guys got to say in the comments now. Tell me what you got to say. Tell me how I'm wrong. That was a C5 bender, by the way, which only would have made Arlecchino better if I had C6'd him. So, just to put that in your face, take that home with you. Do what you will. He's obviously got a crown burst. Holy crap, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next one. Stop talking that trash, because everyone's hearing you, and it's annoying. Ad Astra, Abby Sask.